Chair, we're now live and the recording has started.
Okay, thank you. Can we just take a sediment, please, for the afternoon?
Yes, thank you, Chair. If you could just confirm you are present when I read your name out. We have Mr. Stuart Adams.
Present.
Mrs. Dawn Black.
Present.
Mr. Jeff Crowson.
Present.
Mrs. Marion Ewanson.
Present.
Mr. Jeff Goodall.
Present.
Mr. Trevor Mason.
Present.
Mr. Richard Maynard.
Present.
Mrs. Jenny Nichol.
Present.
Ms. Mel Sullivan.
Here.
And Mr. Ian Taylor.
Present.
Chair, I can confirm that the officers I mentioned at the start of the meeting this morning are also still present. So that's our LSOs, our admin and paralegals, and Mr. Ingram for the later item.
Okay, thank you. So we start now on item 11, which is the grant of an occasional licence, repeated occasional licence for the TOR workshop, Unit 2, Braemar Mews, Mar Road, Braemar. And I think we have Mr. Addy with us. So please note that the board meeting will be recorded and published online for public viewing after the meeting. I will now ask the Deputy Clerk to confirm the procedure for the hearing.
Thank you, Chair. Again, similar to items earlier today, this relates to our repeated occasional policy. The report sets out the history of the applications that have been made to date. Harriet will be able to provide an update on the position of any premises licence application that may have been received. And we also have the official representation from our Licensing Standards Officer and the conditions suggested within the report. It's for the board to determine whether or not these applications are granted today based on any explanation given around the progress of the required premises licence given by the applicant. Insofar as the procedure is concerned, we'll hear from the applicant, hear from the Licensing Standards Officer. The applicant has a right of reply. Questions can be asked of all parties. We then have concluding remarks in reverse order before the board reach a determination. Chair, prior to handing back to you, I'll just take this opportunity to ask Harriet to confirm whether or not any premises licence application has been received.
Thank you, Maura. I confirm that an application was submitted by Mr. Addy earlier this week. However, it isn't competent at this stage, but the LSO will work directly with the applicant to make sure that the competent application is submitted.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, can I just confirm that Mr. Addy is present?
Yes, I'm here.
Are you satisfied that you've received all of the relevant information and you feel able to participate in the determination of the application?
Yes, I do, yeah.
And can I confirm that Keith Simpson, Licensing Standards Officer, is present?
Yes, I'm here, convener.
And are you satisfied that you've received all the relevant information and feel able to participate in the determination of the application?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me. So, in line with the guidance you've received in the public participant meeting protocol for licensing board hearings, please can you mute your microphone when not speaking if your phone permits this. Please do not speak unless I invite you to do so. And please do not interrupt the other speakers. If you do, you may be removed from the meeting. Once you've been asked to make concluding remarks, you're not entitled to speak again unless to answer a question from a board member. Once the board has made its decision, you will be asked to leave the meeting. If the board requires to adjourn to deliberate the application, the recording of the meeting will be paused and the board will retire to a separate online meeting room. Please then wait in the main meeting room until the board members return and I can resume the meeting. At that point, the recording of the meeting will be restarted. So can I go first, please, to the applicant, Mr. Addy, to outline the terms of your application to the board? And you might want to address concerns raised in the representation at this time, although you will get a further opportunity to address the board after the other parties have spoken. So, Mr. Addy, please.
Yeah, hi. Thanks very much, everyone, for your time. As you stated a moment ago, I have lodged an application now, albeit it's not fully competent. I'm not quite sure exactly where the lack of competence is, but Keith Simpson has very kindly offered to meet and to help me to go through these items there. My Section 50 certificates I haven't included on this application, and that may be the lack of competence, but I sort of presumed and I hoped that the board would accept that my previous application that fell through due to timing and things, the Section 50 certificates were issued for that, and I think they were all approved. So hopefully that'll help things along when we get to it. But as I say, I'm meeting Keith next week, which I'm very grateful for, and hopefully we'll be able to iron out any issues and get the full license in order. In the meantime, I would hope and ask that the board look favourably on my continued occasional licenses to tide us through till that time.
Sorry, I was on mute there. Thank you, Mr. Addy. Do you want to maybe say a little bit about the business that you're running there? What type of business is it?
Yeah, by all means. Yeah, it's perhaps in some regards an unusual business. So we are furniture makers. We also do high-end fitted joinery. We were construction managers on the Five Farms project. So we come from a background of being builders, but have specialised very much into high-end furniture and fitted joinery. So the bulk of my business is actually the making of furniture out of local hardwoods. But we, quite early on in our sort of diversification from building through to furniture working, identified that we needed a premises, a showroom, if you like. And so we have a showroom in Braemar. That is the premises that this license pertains to. And but we wanted to offer something, to sort of partner, if you like, the hardwood furniture that we make. And in my mind, it's really logical. It's quite interesting. Sometimes when we talk to customers, sometimes people think it's a really obvious choice, but other people think it's a really unusual choice to have handcrafted, handmade hardwood Scottish furniture alongside malt whiskey. But to me, there's a shared sort of heritage and craft and all the rest of it in both sort of pursuits, if you like. So anyway, that's where we are. We sell quite expensive furniture, bespoke furniture, and alongside that, a range of whiskey. It's not a very large stock of whiskey, but in terms of our business model, it helps us greatly day to day. We don't sell a huge amount of dining tables, but we sell a lot more whiskey, but the whiskey is obviously less value. But what the whiskey does is it brings people into the showroom. It opens up conversations about the things that we do in our core business activities, and it leads to commissions from there. So they work very much hand in hand. It's not the core of our business, but it's a very useful tool, and it's a very nice thing for customers. Our customer base is pretty much high-end luxury, normally visitors to Braemar that are staying in the Five Farms opposite, which is a very, very expensive bed night hotel. We don't have any issues at all with the likes of underagers or people with drinking problems. It's a very sort of, I don't know how to put this without sounding, exclusive or anything like this, but we're not a general store or a corner shop sort of thing. It's quite a high-end business.
Okay, thank you. I think that's a useful explanation.
Thank you.
I'll go now to Keith Simpson, Licensing Standards Officer, please.
Yes, good afternoon, convener, board members. Again, thank you very much. This is another of the series of repeated occasional licenses that the board has been hearing this morning and into this afternoon. So this hearing relates to my representation to 4 occasional licenses applied for by Mr. Thomas Addy for Tor Workshop Unit 3, the Muse, Braemar. The occasional licenses are for both on and off sales, where the shop sells a range of high-end spirits, particularly whisky, and is designed particularly for the tourist trade in Braemar. The on sales side of things are for particular tastings, etc., that can be held on the premises, but those don't seem to be a main part of the activity, but can be done. The application is before you to cover a period from the 1st of September this year through the 26th of October, and they are the most recent in a series of occasional licences dating back to the 9th of August 2022. The applications before you today are really to update the board on the progress with regards to the application for a premises licence. This information has now been provided to you, and as Mr. Addy has alluded to, there's applications that came in this week did not have the Section 50s attached to them, albeit there were Section 50s previously applied for back in 2021-22, which may or may not still be extant, but we need to investigate that. But there's also other parts to the licence application that just need a bit of work to actually bring them up to speed, and hence the opportunity I've maybe taken to have a meeting with them just to go over a few things. So with regards to the occasional licences, again, back to them, whilst I'm not objecting to the applications per se, it's incumbent on me to make the board aware of the potential inconsistency with supplementary policy para 4.45. And if the board are minded to continue to grant these applications, then my proposed conditions are set out within my report, and happy to take any questions on that. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Can I just clarify there, you said Unit 3, I think it's Unit 2?
I don't know, Mr. Addy, do you want to confirm that?
This is actually it's a hot topic of discussion because I don't actually know which is correct, I have to admit. I have seen it as both. Yeah, I've seen it as both as well, and actually it is one of the reasons why we're still talking about this, because I had on the site plan, the location plan, and also in my detailed floor plan, incorrectly, I believe, noted it as Unit 2 when I believe it's Unit 3. But as I say, I have seen it in both, and I have seen it in both from the council too. So I'm not quite sure which is which.
Okay. There was me thinking that would be a simple question.
Yeah, no, I know. I think actually in my most recent application, I've noted it as Tour Workshop, The Muse, Braemar, rather than having actually a specific unit number. There is only one Tour Workshop in that area. There are 4 units, and we only have 1, so it might even be easier to take the number away from the conversation.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Addy, it's actually your chance now. If you've got anything you want to raise or add, having heard from the Licensing Standards Officer.
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll go to board members. Have you any questions for either of the parties? Ms. Black, please.
Thank you, convener. Just to clarify, within the actual applications, when it asks the questions, is alcohol to be sold off the premises, it's been answered no. And it has answered yes for alcohol to be sold on the premises. But from what I've just heard, it would indicate that you're looking for on and off sales. Can you clarify exactly what it is that you're applying for here?
Yes, I beg your pardon. So that must be my mistake. So we are generally, it's an off sales. So it's for sale of consumption off the premises. We don't actually sell alcohol for consumption on the premises, but we do offer tastings, or we do want to offer tastings. There'll be free events, but will be, because we host them in conjunction with a distillery or with a whiskey company, and they provide the spirit for us to serve as tastings. But I believe that still requires an on-sale license, even though there's no money changing hands for the actual alcohol. So so that's probably where that is. It is actually an on and an off sales license we require, as Keith said. But so if it's not listed as that in the application, then that's an error on my part.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we need to take guidance on how that affects what we can do based on the paperwork in front of us?
Morag?
Yes, probably. What I would welcome is Harriet having a quick look at the actual application.
The applications are for an on sales. If it's just an error by that applicant and it's been confirmed by the board, the applications haven't been granted because we haven't got delegated powers. So if it is literally just an error of it should be an off sales with those hours stated on the application, we still have the time to correct those if the applicant is happy with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Harry.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mason, please.
Yeah, it's a question for the LSO actually, Keith Simpson. If the problems with this application, is it how are they fixable? What I'm trying to work out is, are they big problems or small problems?
You mean with the premises application?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, I think primarily the situation is because it has only just come in within the last couple of days. I think I can only just say that it's maybe just a wee bit kind of rough around the edges, and it needs a wee bit of care to bring it up to standard. But to answer your question directly, the sort of things that we're looking at are fairly minor. It's just maybe a bit more dotting I's and crossing T's rather than being the substance of what the premises is doing and what the license is going to entail is not in dispute. It's just more some kind of procedural matters that need to be addressed to make it competent.
So there's not going to be a big clash that's going to stop it from going through. Hopefully.
Not as far as I could see, but obviously I can't tell where things are going to go in the future. But as it stands, it's nothing major. So yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Obviously, Mr. Mason, it still has to go out for consultation. So
yeah.
Okay. Mr. Maynard, please.
Yes, good afternoon. Just very quickly, is there a specific reason why the previous application for a premises license failed?
Is that a question for the applicant?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so the previous application, there were a couple of queries came back. I can't actually remember what they were, to be honest, but I think it was probably similar to the things that Keith is talking about now that need sort of smoothing over at the edges. But there was the time it took for me to respond to those issues was such that I think the application basically fell through. That was my fault. The reasons for that timing, as I don't know if anyone is particularly interested in the details, but I've suffered some fairly significant bad health that actually turns out to be an issue that's a long-standing chronic issue rather than a terminal issue. And for quite a while, I was very concerned that it was terminal. I'm very happy to say that it's not, but nevertheless, that has caused me some difficulty over the past sort of 18 months or 2 years, and things like this unfortunately have slipped by. I suppose in a way the ability to apply for temporary licenses has in a way facilitated our, how should I put this, are not continuing the main license. It was kind of, it's easy, or it has been easy. I appreciate that's not what they're for, and I'm not here to suggest that I just carry on these temporary licenses. But and of course the fact that I'm speaking to you now, and the fact that we've put our license in, means that we are now working towards it, sort of thing. And I don't plan in any way to rely on temporary licenses. But that's basically where we got to previously.
Muted again. Sorry, just for clarity, they're not temporary licenses, they're occasional licenses.
I beg your pardon.
Yeah. Okay. Any more questions? Okay, in that case, we'll go to closing remarks. We'll go to Keith Simpson first, please.
Yes, convener. No, I have nothing further to add.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Addy, do you wish to say anything in closing?
Just to thank everyone for their time and consideration, but nothing new to add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do board members require any legal advice from the clerk? No. So could I ask then the Deputy Clerk, please outline the terms of the legal test for the application?
Thank you, Chair. Again, there are no grounds upon which to refuse. The point here was to try and ensure that the applicant moves towards a premises licence, and any grant of course, will be subject to the standard local conditions and the specific conditions requested by the LSO and Police Scotland within the report. And again, Chair, I would be asking for the board to give me a steer as to how they would wish future occasional licence applications to be processed and whether or not they would be happy for that to be a delegated authority.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do board members wish to retire to deliberate? Nope. So I can open the matter to members for debate. Any indications, Mr. Taylor?
Thanks, convener. When I initially read the application, I must admit I was a little bit concerned, particularly in relation to the length of time of some of the occasions that had been used, and also the lack of correspondence. And I'm just grateful for the applicant and his previous comments, and just hope that his condition is manageable, improving, and is able to cope and enjoy life as much as he can. So my view subsequently, partly because of that and partly because of the application that is being made for the premises licence, I'm much more comfortable and happy to see things progressing. So these are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Goodall, please.
Oh, thank you, convener. Very, very similar to Ian. I'm quite happy with this and the way it's progressed now that we have the application for a permanent licence and that work's being done. I'm quite happy with everything as things are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any further indications. No members wish to contribute at this point. So in that case, our members, oh, sorry, Morag, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Just thinking through the comments that were made just slightly earlier about on-off sales and the way that the application is sitting at the current time, which is purely off sales, but it does appear that the intention all along has been on and off sales. It's really just to bottom out that issue, and for the applicant to confirm that he would wish that to be amended prior to it being considered to be granted, and to check with the LSO and with the police representative as to whether or not they would have any additional conditions or any difficulties with that amendment being made.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, first of all, maybe from the LSO?
My comment would be primarily my understanding was the business would be primarily for off sales, obviously because of the whisky, but there might be an element of some sort of evening where there was a requirement for tastings, which would be more than just a very small, so it's proper measures, in which case on sales. So again, the question really would be back to the applicant. If he does not feel that that's necessary at this juncture, but could have something to cover this in his main premises application, then that would be fine. But does he need that in the here and now with regards to the occasional licenses, in which case I would move that perhaps just off sales in the short term would be the answer, but really it depends what the applicant actually would want.
Okay, can I just check, is there any comment from Sergeant Grant?
No, there's no comment from me.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Addy, do you want to comment on the issue of the tasting sessions?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So we have no plans to hold any tastings in the immediate term. There is an off chance actually. There's a whiskey festival happening in Braemar, and I think that's in October. And we have been asked by the organisers if we'd be happy to be a venue. I would like to be a venue, but fully understand that we would need to have on sales for an on-sales license for that. But it depends what we mean by long-term, short-term. I think the application's in, but by the sound of things, it's not likely to be granted by October, in which case we would need to make sure that whichever license we were holding over that period would need to have the on-sales and the off-sales. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. So is it a case then that the current applications that we're looking at today, the current occasionals, could be amended to include on sales?
Yes, Chair, they could be.
Yeah.
If that's requested and there are no representations against
just-
that. Sorry, I'll let Harriet
Just to
jump
be
in.
clear, the applications submitted are for on sales.
Yeah,
But it was an error on behalf of the applicant. It should have been off sales. The conditions stated in the report do also relate to off sales. So I do believe it was just an error. I think what Mr. Simpson is trying to clarify is that the applicant needs to confirm that was the case. And then if it was a case of it's just, ticking the wrong box and it should have been off sales, we can amend that. If it's a case that he does need the additional on sales, we would then have to go down a different route.
Okay.
yep, agreed.
Thanks, Harriet.
All right, so not that straightforward. Ms. Black?
Thank you. Yeah, I've just been looking through the applications again, and it does very much, all the answers are pertaining to on sales and not to off sales within the license application, which I hate to say is going to be a complication, I think, from where we find ourselves. I mean, personally, I'd be perfectly happy to give on and off sales for these occasionals, but it's where it is legally based on what paperwork has come through.
Yeah, I'm just checking that wording again as well. Yeah. It's not that clear either in the application, the answer to the question, what type of event is to be held? Sale of alcohol? Because that's, that could be on or off. Keith, can I bring you in?
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the. I think because it is a series of these. I mean, clearly this isn't an event, so obviously these applications are set in statute, so we don't really have a chance to change the wording. But they're not events. This is why we're speaking about these. These are businesses running on occasional licenses, so that really doesn't necessarily fit the bill. I think as a series of them, I think there's always been a presumption. And probably in the past, if we look through all of them, that it was off sales that were asked for. I think the one I'm looking at does seem to indicate on sales, and I presume that is an error. So my question again would be to perhaps the clerk and the legal team is, as these haven't been granted as yet, whether these can be amended to suit, or whether we need to seek any form of new applications. But if the board are happy that at this juncture that they can be amended, then I think that's what would be desirable.
Okay, is there an option maybe just to amend the first one and get the rest resubmitted? Is that an option, Morag?
Can I bring Harriet in, because it's Harriet will be processing.
Okay.
These. Thank you.
I think in the practical terms, he's applied for an on-sale license, which actually requires more information to be submitted than an off-sales. So all the information on the forms, it does relate to the off-sales. He's just obviously ticked the wrong box. It's 10 to 5, which is when our off-sale hours. You don't even need to fill in the children and young persons access in relation to an off-sales license. So it is just a case of a wrong box. I think obviously we just need to the issue with the October one, if there is to be an on sales, we may have to just get a new application submitted there. But I think as long as the LSO and the Police Scotland are happy that their conditions recommended cover the off sale element, then I think it's fine to be. We do have time to amend them. I don't know, Keith, if you wanted to come
Okay.
in.
Yeah, my final point was on that, just to see that the conditions that I have applied to these occasional licenses are for off sales. So just to make that clear, that would be, if it had been for on sales as well, I would have additional conditions to add. So I think I've taken the presumption it's been for off sales.
Okay, thank you. So if we were to grant on the basis of an amendment for on sales, there would need to be new conditions added, or maybe just exceeding what can be done today. Mr. Taylor, please.
Yes, thanks, Marianne. And I'm sorry I'm going to add further to the confusion because in the meantime, I'm looking at page 452, where it speaks, where an answer to the question, what time, no, where are we? Let me get to the right page myself. Bear with me a second. In answer to the question, time alcohol will be will be on sale for consumption on the premises from 1000 hours. And the next one, for sale and for consumption on the premises 2 is also 1000 hours. But I suspect that it's either a typing error or an error in the application, but I suspect in the previous occasionals it would have been 1700 hours. So I presume that is the is what's meant, but it isn't actually said in that particular answer to the question on page 452.
Yeah, I can see that as well. I'm looking at it on this second screen, so it's not terribly clear. Mr. Goodall, please.
I was going to say the same as Ian, but I'm also going to point out, I don't know what age of children will be permitted entry, and it says any, and given that it's on sales, is that competent?
Harriet, maybe?
So if it's, Mr. Goodall, if you could please clarify, are you looking to clarify an on sales license or an off sales license?
Well, that's, I don't know.
That's exactly
In
it.
terms of answering any to the terms of the ages of children, it would be competent. A child is 0 to 15. So if the applicant writes any, that would mean that 0 to 15-year-olds would be allowed in the premises. If they didn't want, if they wanted 5 and up, they could put 5 to 15, for example. But yeah, any would be suitable in this circumstance. If the applicant has meant to apply for off sales, that question isn't actually required. Because he's ticked yes on the online form, that question then follows, but if he'd clicked no, he wouldn't have had to answer that question. So in terms of if it's an off sales, that question is actually irrelevant.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Black, please.
Yes, thanks for that. Considering that the applicant has ticked on sales and has completed the form for on sales and not ticked off sales, is it possible that the applications could be amended, including that time error which is actually on 2 of them, that it could just be amended so that yes is ticked for the off sales, which means that then they're all competent for off and on sales at this point, which would also mean that Keith would need to quickly tell us which other conditions he wanted to add.
Harriet.
I would probably advise that what we could do is we could amend and reconsult the applications going forward, and obviously the board can make a decision on whether the repeated occasional use should be, where it should fall again. Certainly we can look to amend and reconsult on the applications if it's just errors that are explained. Just double checking when the first application is actually due to start. I believe it may be the 1st of September, so we do have some time to get them out. Obviously the police and the LSO have already provided conditions, so it would just be a case of sending an email to both consultees to confirm whether they want to add new conditions. So we could obviously just get a steer on how the board would like to tackle the repeated occasional use, and we could amend the errors contained within the documentation after the board.
Okay,
Can I come back in?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I would be content with that because obviously a license application is in, it is being worked upon, even though it's not quite competent yet, it is being worked upon. Everything is going in the right direction, which is why it came to us in the first place. So moving forward, I would take Harriet's suggestion there. If they can turn around, especially that first one in time, or we grant the first one and then you do it for the subsequent ones, and then delegate any future applications to the clerk.
Can I
I'm
just
wondering if,
jump
oh,
in
sorry,
there?
Maura. Yeah.
I was about to say, I think actually what you're doing is delegating all of these applications to the clerk. So if you're content that there is no need for them to come back before the board, it would be a matter for, you know, it would be delegated to the clerk to process all 5 of these applications. And then we can sort out
if you feel that you can turn around the first, if you feel you can turn around the first one so that it is in place, so the applicant doesn't have a lull in his licensing in time for this one, that first one starting, then yes. If you can't guarantee, as far as we can guarantee these things, that first one would be in place, then perhaps we can grant the first one and then delegate the further ones. I
think there's still going to be a difficulty with granting the first one anyway. My understanding from Harriet is that it's going to be a very quick reconsult. It's not going to be a difficult reconsultation. Yeah. So I think we should be able to get those. Again, I can't ever make a guarantee.
I mean,
but
the last thing I want to do is put things in the way, because, you know, the applicant is doing everything that we wish him to do. It's just unfortunate that there are some errors in the paperwork when it's come in front of us.
It would be important to remember as well that this isn't the prime trading function of the business. So if there were to be a gap or a lull, the business is still trading, albeit they're just not selling any whiskey. I just know if they have to have regular people apart from tourists, it's something they then have to explain to people, which isn't the most ideal thing to have to do as a business owner.
As I said, Ms. Black, I mean, should be a very quick reconsultation. So, you know, really what you were looking to do would be to delegate authority for all of these applications, and that will allow us the opportunity to speak to the applicant and get these errors sorted in the meantime.
I see Harriet's waiting to come in.
I was just going to confirm as well, we do have to legally advertise them for 7 days, and we are within that remit just now. So it would be a case, obviously, if the applicant would have to get these applications amended to us quite quickly. Obviously, the LSO could provide guidance in that regard if needed, but we would have to move it quite quickly, but it certainly is doable. And then we can obviously get that sorted. Like I said, they've already been consulted on, so it would be a reconsult, and we do have time for the statutory advertisement.
Yeah, because it would be a reconsult because it was consulted on, but it's actually off. Or it's a combination of both. Yeah, I wonder, well, we're not quite at determination, but I'm just wondering if we deal with the first one and then the others are resubmitted. Would that be clearer? Because they are very confusing with so many errors. It would give the applicant a chance to just resubmit the following. If the first one was amended and we could decide on that one today, and the others have to be resubmitted. Is that a possibility? Harriet?
Could you just clarify, Chair, to be resubmitted and then be brought before the board, as in you're postponing the hearing of the other applications, or would you be looking to have authority delegated back to the Deputy Clerk and the convener to discuss them going forward?
I would say I'd be happy for them to be delegated to the clerk with consultation with myself, rather than coming back to the board. But I think it would be good if the applications were correct, rather than having to decide on something that's not actually complete. or accurate. I'm seeing Keith there. That's maybe not practical. I'm very uneasy about deciding on these when we know they're not completed properly.
Yes, and to some respect, you know, I have to take some responsibility for not actually picking up on this, and it is perhaps as a result of the fact that there were a series of them and that there are these errors in them. But I certainly believe that a very simple amendment to these applications and reconsulting so that both myself and Sergeant Grant and his team have the opportunity to add further conditions if we want, to me would be a satisfactory result. But at the end of the day, ultimately it's for the board to decide on that. And if you choose to just go down the route of granting the first one, and obviously the main driver for Mr. Addy's business is obviously over the Braemar Gathering weekend, which is the 7th of September. It's obviously going to be a very busy time for them in Braemar on that day. We obviously wouldn't want to disadvantage them there, but realistically, I'm in the board's hand, but certainly myself and potentially Sergeant Grant would be quite happy to turn these around relatively quickly if we had a reconsult and everything was dotted.
Okay.
I's dotted and T's crossed.
Okay, thank you. So that would work. Right, so are members content that they've got sufficient evidence upon which to make a decision?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So I could call for a motion at this point. Ms. Black?
Yes, thank you, convener. I am going to move that we accept that there are errors in the first application, which runs from the 23rd, which is 2 days away, until the 1st of September, and grant that one with the amendment of that it's on and off sales, and then ask for the rest to be reconsulted once we applied for, and be delegated to the clerk with consultation with the convener for determination, and any further occasionals that come through until the premises license is complete.
Okay,
Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Are you seconding, Ms. Nichol?
Yep, I can second that, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Morag?
Sorry, if I just want to confirm, Ms. Black just made reference to an application running from 2 days' time. My understanding is that the first application is from the 1st of September.
Oh, right. Yeah, sorry, that's me reading it wrong. It's the first date up there is received for. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That's my mistake. Received on the 23rd yeah. Oh, it says 23rd of the 6th. Goodness me. Yeah, okay. So required for the 1st to the 14th, which is his critical time for needing the license to cover for the Braemar Gathering. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Just for the minute as well, can we add that Mr. Adams, I think, has left the meeting? I think he sent a message and I don't see him in the list anymore, so I think he's no longer present. So we've got a motion with Ms. Black, seconded by Ms. Nichol. Is there an amendment? No. In that case, can you just confirm the motion, please, Morag?
Sorry, because I was frantically writing and typing at the same time. Can I just ask Ms. Black just to confirm that, yes. And then I can confirm that. I'm sorry, apologies.
No, it's fine. It's fine. So the motion is that we accept the error in the first application, which runs from the 1st of September to the 14th of September, and grant it for on and off sales. But the future applications be resubmitted correctly and determination of them is delegated to the deputy clerk with consultation with the convener. And that applies for all occasional licences until the premises licence is granted.
Thank you.
All future applications.
Okay. Harriet, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, sorry to go back a little bit. Would it be able to clarify with the applicant directly? I believe that the on sales aren't actually required at this stage. As of the 1st of September, it should just be off sales, and then we can get the other ones amended to include on sales if applicable. I believe the on sales was more of a, the premise that going forward with a premises license. I don't believe at this stage that it was an on sales that needed to be applied for. We would just be looking to amend that yes to off sales, not on sales. Would that be correct?
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. There is one potential event in October, but I would apply for that later on. So you're right. Right now, all I'm looking for is off sales.
Perfect. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Addy. So I believe that Ms. Black's motion would need to be amended to include that we change it from on sales to off sales, which is clearly an error by the applicant. We then get the other ones amended by the applicant directly, and we can, tackle the issue of on and off sales at that point. But it will be an off sales only from the 1st.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. You agreeable to that as well, Mrs. Nichol? Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine, Chair. Thanks.
Okay. Do you want to just go over that again, Morag? It's like pulling teeth today.
So we have a motion from Ms. Black, seconded by Mrs. Nichol, and that is to accept that there has been an error in the first application, to amend that error to state that it's off sales only, and thereafter to grant that application subject to the standard local conditions and the specific conditions contained within the report. And thereafter, all future applications are to be delegated to the deputy clerk in consultation with the convener. I think that was it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Do members agree?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay. Thank you. Right. So, Mr. Addy, that's the decision of the board today. Are you quite clear, or do you want to hear the clerk just read that out for you?
No, I'm clear. I've made a note of that. I know it was a bit of a stramash getting there, but I want to thank everyone for their pragmatism and attention on this. And I'm going to resubmit from the 14th onwards, having the 1st to the 14th in place.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So thank you for attending, and that concludes item 11. We now move on to item 12, which is an application for the review of a personal licence for Mr. Dennis Garden. So I think Mr. Garden is in the meeting. Could you just confirm, Mr. Garden, that you're with us?
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay, thank you. And Police Scotland, I could see in the meeting as well. Please note that the board meeting will be recorded and published online for public viewing after the meeting. I will now ask the Deputy Clerk to confirm the procedure for the hearing.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, this hearing has been fixed to allow the board to consider the notice received from Police Scotland advising that the holder of a personal licence, that's Mr. Garden, has been convicted of a relevant offence. Insofar as the procedure is concerned, the board will firstly hear from Sergeant Grant on behalf of Police Scotland. We'll then hear from Mr. Garden, the personal licence holder. There'll be an opportunity for Sergeant Grant to answer any issues raised by Mr. Garden. Board members will then be given the opportunity to ask questions of both parties. Mr. Garden will be given the opportunity to make any closing remarks, followed by Sergeant Grant's closing remarks, and then members will begin their deliberations. Just insofar as the options open to members in considering this matter this morning, members can elect firstly to take no action insofar as Mr. Garden's personal licence is concerned. They can also elect to decide to suspend for no longer than a period of 6 months, or to revoke the licence. And finally, they can also take a decision to endorse the licence with the note of the conviction. And I'll be happy to take any questions as we go through, because I appreciate this is not a matter that occurs particularly frequently. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So can I just confirm that Sergeant Grant from Police Scotland is represented?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And just to confirm that the licence holder, Dennis Garden, is present?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. And are you satisfied that you've received all of the relevant information and feel able to participate in the determination of the application?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Can I just check before we go any further, has the licence been returned?
Yeah.
Yes, Chair, I
Yes.
understand it has been returned.
Okay, thank you. So in line with the guidance that you've received in the public participant meeting protocol for licensing board hearings, please can you all mute your microphones when not speaking if your phone permits this. Please do not speak unless I invite you to do so, and please do not interrupt other speakers. If you do, you may be removed from the meeting. Once you've been asked to make concluding remarks, you're not entitled to speak again unless to answer a question from a board member. Once the board has made its decision, you will be asked to leave the meeting. And if the board does require to adjourn to deliberate the application, you will be removed from the meeting and the recording of the meeting will be paused. And then on resuming the meeting, the Deputy Clerk will re-invite you into the meeting and the recording will be restarted. So I'll go first of all to Sergeant Grant to speak regarding the submission of the S83 notice. Sergeant Grant, please.
Thank you. I'm addressing the board today in relation to notifying you in regard to the conviction of Dennis Garden of 6 Cartline Grove, Aberdeenshire. Sorry, Cartline, Aberdeenshire. On the 13th of June 2024 at Aberdeen Sheriff Court, Mr. Garden was convicted of Section 5(1)(a) of the Road Traffic Act, that's drink driving. He was disqualified for 12 months and fined £600. The circumstances of that conviction are as follows: that 21:30 hours on Wednesday, the 22nd of May 2024, officers received anonymous information that the licence holder was consuming alcohol within a licensed premises and that he would be driving his motor vehicle to his home address. Short time later, officers observed a motor vehicle NL60FXS being driven along an unclassified road between Carterline and A92 roadside of Carterline, Aberdeenshire, where they stopped the vehicle. The licence holder was viewed to be the driver, and the officers detected a strong smell of alcohol and noticed that his eyes were glazed. At 21:53 hours the same day, the licence holder was required to provide a specimen of breath for a breath test. He complied and provided a positive result. He was then arrested and conveyed to Kitty Brewster Custody Suite, where he provided 2 further specimens of breath with a lower reading of 35 micrograms of alcohol in 100 millilitres of breath. The licence holder was charged and reported as convicted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll now go to Mr. Garden, please. Can you respond to the information contained in that S83 notice?
Yep. Firstly, I accept everything that the police officer has just confirmed. Firstly, I'd like to apologise to the chair and the board for having to appear before you. I'm deeply ashamed as to what has occurred. I'm a father of 4 adult children, grandfather to 8. I've been driving for over 50 years, and up until this point, apart from 3 small speeding convictions, the last of which was 2004, I've had an unblemished record. I retired from my previous employment as in a profession in financial services, and was then asked to assist in the promotion of a business, 6 Degrees North Brewery, part of which was attending events to promote the beer, hence the requirement for a personal licence. I fully understand the responsibility of that, and deeply regret the position I now find myself in. The business has been very supportive. We still have quite a large number of outside events that need to be supported, and I'm looking to carry on with that if possible. And I was given the opportunity at the court to attend a drink driving course, which I have now attended 2 of the 4 sessions, and will continue on till the end of that, until such times as that is completed, and then await the return of my licence after the ban is completed. I would ask the court to take into account that, as such, I know it was wrong, and as I said, I regret it. I had merely gone down to get a takeaway fish supper from the Creel Inn, as I'd been working late. I took the vehicle purely because the time related, the Creel stops serving its meals at a certain time, and I wouldn't have time to walk down and get it. I was persuaded to have an extra pint before I headed back up the road, which I now regret. All I can do is apologise again and leave it in the hands of the board. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Garden, and I appreciate you being so candid with us today. Sergeant Grant, have you got anything that you want to come back on to address any issues raised by the licence holder?
No, I'm content, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Board members, have you got any questions for either of the parties? No questions? Ms. Sullivan, please.
I was wondering how far over the limit was that? Was it a 1 beer's worth over the limit? Does
The limit's
the officer know?
The limit's
Sergeant
20.
Grant, yeah.
The limit it would be 22, and the license holder was at 35. So, 35 was the old limit back in the day. You wouldn't have been prosecuted, but so it could be just a couple of beers, 1 beer, depending on your metabolism and your frame, etc. But it's a few drinks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any more questions? No. In that case, then I'll go to Mr. Garden for any concluding remarks, but no new evidence before considering the application.
No, thank you, Chair. I have no further comments.
Okay, thank you. Sergeant Grant, have you got any concluding remarks?
I have nothing further to add, thank you.
Okay. Do board members require any legal advice from the clerk? No. Does the board wish to retire to deliberate at all? No indication. In that case, any debate? Any comments from members? No. So can I just confirm with members then that they've received sufficient evidence upon which to make a decision?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Can I call for a motion? Mrs. Nichol?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I echo your sentiments. I appreciate the description from the licence holder and how candid he's been with us. But I think, given the licensing objectives of preventing crime and disorder and securing public safety, I would move a motion to endorse the licence.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder? Ms. Black?
Yeah, I would second that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there an amendment? No. In that case, just, I don't know if we need to just have that clear, but I think Mrs. Nicholl made her motion very clear. So do members agree with the endorsement?
Agreed.
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 Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay, so do you want to summarise the decision there, Morag?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mr. Garden, the board have listened to your submissions today and considered the matter, and they have decided today to endorse your licence. Your licence will be endorsed, and just to make you aware that that endorsement sits on your licence for a period of 5 years.
Okay, so your licence is still obviously valid, Mr. Garden.
Thank you.
Okay. Right, thank you for attending today, and that concludes that hearing. And we can move on to item 13, Policy Reports, Annual Functions and Finance Report 2023-24. And the officer taking the report is Martin Ingram.
Thank you. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so the report before board members today is to consider the combined annual functions and finance report for the financial year 2023 to 2024. There is a requirement thereafter, should the board be amenable to approving this, to then publish that in terms of sections 9A and 9B of the Licensing Scotland Act 2005. One aspect that I would note here as a hands up and mea culpa on my own part, you'll have noted from paragraphs 2.1 and 2.2 that the statutory duty upon the licensing board is to publish that within 3 months of the end of each financial year. So ideally this should have been coming to you at your June board. However, while you are hearing me in my function or with my hats on as principal solicitor within the governance team and deputy clerk to the board, you are aware that one of my other hats is elections coordinator for Aberdeenshire Council, and with the UK parliamentary general election being called on a snap basis in May, that required myself in particular to divert attentions toward delivering that, which is why the report you have before you today is only before you today in August. So my apologies for that. However, just to confirm that while we would obviously aspire to having these published within the 3-month time frame, there are no knock-on implications in terms of any statutory penalties or the likes of that. And again, should members be amenable to approving the report today, we will then endeavour to get that published on our website as soon as possible and Scottish Government duly informed. In relation to the paperwork itself, obviously this is the 7th year of publishing the Functions and Finance report, and in relation to the content within the report itself that covers both statistical information and financial information. In terms of the statistical information, I have attempted in a change from convention in relation to the covering report you receive to provide a little bit more detail within the covering report itself at paragraph 3.2 in relation to some of the trends which had been highlighted from this, which hopefully has brought to your attention a bit more front and centre what trends we have been picking up from the report over the last financial year. It's exactly the same, or at least a paraphrase of the information which is already within the report, but again, just for ease of reference, and I'd be happy to take any comments with regards to whether members have found that easier to follow or not. And then in relation to the financial information contained within the report, due to the fact that we are now 7 years into providing finance reports, in order to declutter the information contained within the financial information, we have decided to narrow that down to 3 columns. So you have the financial information in relation to the financial year that this report applies to, 2023/24, compared with the previous year, 2022/23, but that also is in comparison with what we've calculated as a mean average of the 5 financial years which comprise the period of the previous licensing policy statement that was in force. So we would probably be looking, if members were agreeable to that, to maintain that as a figure in future and then compare it with subsequent financial information for the years that our current licensing policy statement applies to. So hopefully, again, that makes sense. But again, if members feel it should be presented otherwise, I am happy to take any comments in that regard. So other than that, it's really just to throw that to members for any hopefully constructive comments and criticisms that you might wish to have. While I am presenting the covering report, I am certainly not going to be taking any or indeed all of the credit in relation to this in terms of the content within the combined functions and finance report itself. The data gathering in relation to that was very much driven in the main point by Clark Simpson, paralegal within the team, who should also be on the call as well and available to answer questions if required. But again, this is just the surface of the iceberg, and underneath that is a gargantuan amount of work which is being undertaken by the licensing team as a whole and together with other stakeholders, including the licensing standards officers. So I will leave it at that and look forward to receiving your comments.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Any questions or comments from members? I can start one off. On page 526, the list of stakeholders, we've still got the licensing forum in there. It's just to see if we're making any progress with having a licensing forum reinstated.
Yes, thank you. So unfortunately, the answer to that at the moment is no. There was, as part of the work that we undertook in relation to producing the current licensing policy statement, which, as members know, came into effect November last year. One of the action points that arose from that was to re-engage with likes of community councils, other stakeholders, to see whether there was an appetite for the licensing forum to be reinstated and for involvement from the broader stakeholders in relation to that, but unfortunately that did not gather any additional interest at that particular stage. But it's something that we continue to aspire to re-establish. It's one of our principal objectives, is to have a licensing forum in place which can provide advice and consultation responses in relation to the business that the licensing board does, and so we will continue to do that, and potentially, again, if members have other suggestions in relation to other avenues that we might want to explore in order to do that, then we would be open to that. One of the other aspects I would mention is there might be a good opportunity coming up in the coming weeks and months. As members may know, Aberdeenshire Council has realigned its administration and delivery of community council elections. So community council elections are now taking place for all 70 community councils next month. So it may well be the case that if we have a brand new uptake of community councils after that, that might be a good opportunity to maybe put the subject matter of licensing forums in front of their attention again, and see if we can maybe get some further traction then.
Okay. Any more comments or questions? So, Mr. Taylor, please.
Thank you. Thanks, Martin. Just that the report was very readable. The diagrams and graphs and pie charts were excellent, and aids in the overall understanding very, very quickly. So thank you very much indeed.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mason, please.
Yeah, do we have any control over the pricing of licenses? It was mentioned earlier on about how we could adjust the prices to slow down the number of occasional licenses, that sort of thing. Is that possible?
They're set in statute, Trevor.
So we
The
don't
price of
set the
occasionals,
prices
we have
at
no
all,
control.
no?
No, we've no control over that.
I mean, certainly in relation to that, and again, conveners touched upon maybe the biggest bugbear from our particular perspective is in relation to the administration of occasional licenses, because it's something which takes up a very significant volume in terms of time and resource it takes in order to process that on our end. But in terms of the statutory amount that we are entitled to charge for that, it is in my view, exceptionally low in comparison to the time and resource it actually takes to administer that.
Set by the Scottish Government, is it?
It is.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think another of the, again, not to start speaking too broadly or small p politically in that regard, but it is something that as a group of licensing authorities, and it's been discussed at SOLAR level amongst ourselves and other colleagues, it is something that we continually go back and challenge the Scottish Government on in relation to having a review of those figures. But to a certain extent, we're at the hands of the Scottish Government to be both instigating those reviews and putting anything into implementation.
Okay. Mr. Goodall, please.
Thank you, convener. Yeah, good report, Martin. I congratulate you on it. Just a tiny wee observation. On page 26, you've got on sales, off sales, and both. I take it that both they are premises that do both.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
That's fine. And one other, well, just on the financial side, on page 550 or 32 of the report, I'm pleased to see that you've got a surplus of £27,891.34p. My question is, where does that go? Given that everything's been paid for, including officers and all the rest of it, is that carried over? Or?
Firstly, what I would say is, unfortunately, not all of it will be available for us to get the benefit of, as members may be aware that we were unsuccessful in defending a previous premises license decision which went to appeal. So some of the money, unfortunately, will likely be taken up in paying the expenses of that particular item. But no, I mean, this is something that is always looked at on a year-by-year basis, and that is, again, fundamentally the position with regards to the civic licensing which takes place as well, is that we aim to get to a position where essentially we are washing our own faces in relation to the income that we're generating in relation to licensing, matching what it costs us to actually deliver the licensing function on behalf of Aberdeenshire Council. So again, in terms of the trends, I think it's positive in general. Over the last few years, basically since coming out of the COVID period, over the last 3 years, we've had a gradual increase in the amount of revenue which is being brought in, with a gradual decrease in the amount of cost it is taking us in order to administer that. But we then use those figures as a basis of effectively reworking what resource we need to put to providing the licensing board's functions going forward, and that's an ongoing basis. So I'm not sure if that necessarily answers your question, but that's the kind of thought process behind it.
That's fine, Martin, but if we do have a surplus, it's actually just kept within the system and carried on to next year, or is that the way it works? It doesn't.
If I get what you're driving at, we certainly don't lose the money anywhere else. That is still money which is available for us to put towards work that we would be doing on behalf of the licensing board in order to continue to meet the functions of the licensing board, if that's what you mean.
Yes, thank you. Just a small flippant comment, but if you can balance the books so well, perhaps you could have a job somewhere in the council trying to balance certain other books. But that's just a wee comment. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? I picked up a few typos and things which I can note down, but there's a really good one on page 542, acting in an inconsistent manger. Made me smile. The other point I picked up, page 546, view amount no longer publicly accessible. I suppose clarity, it's no longer got a service point, but the public still have access there if they're attending area committee or if they've got an appointment with the officers that are housed there. So I don't know if that needs any clarity, but it just means there's no service point.
Yeah, on your latter point, convener, yeah, I think we'll maybe look to see whether we can just tinker around the wording just to make that clearer. But that is exactly the point which we were trying to drive across, was that there's no longer a service point provision at the Viewmount office. But as you say, it's not that it couldn't be available for public use for prior appointed matters and the likes of that. And in relation to your former point, yeah, we'll take that away and make sure that the manger is taken away too.
Okay, any further questions? So I can move then to page 548. There's quite a few bits there where it doesn't read particularly well. Just bring it up. I would agree with Councillor Taylor as well. All the graphic representations are really very clear and easy to understand. And I think the one with the occasionals on it on page 541, I think it really shows just how high the occasional licence applications are, although it's good to see that it is down slightly. Page 548. Yeah, it's the page on the work of the licensing standards officers. There's a few in there. The first one is the second paragraph. Over the last year, predominantly inspections have been focused. The predominantly would need to come after. So it would be inspections have predominantly been focused on reactive work. Just a change there in that. And second last paragraph, there's a with. That doesn't make any sense. So this year, it would just need to say the adoption of the 2023-2028 board policy rather than with the adoption, because it doesn't read then with the next part of that sentence. And at the end, it refers to the 4E's approach. And then it refers to engagement in education and enforcement. So it's only naming 3. Thought it might be useful if they were all in there.
Yeah, that's all fine, convener. I'll arrange for those changes to be made accordingly.
And page 552, the statement by the board, which is down the substantial, it needs a 2, which is down 2.
Okay.
Just bringing up the right page, just so I can note the exact bit. Oh, I've gone too far. It's in that first little statement, the first box with the blue line across the top, which is down the substantial change. So it just needs to, which is down to the substantial change in that first box.
Noted as well. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? No questions? Okay, so if we go back to the recommendations on page 514, consider and approve the terms of the combined functions financial report for the financial year 1st April 23 to 31st March 24, as attached as Appendix 1 in the report. So we have considered, do we approve the terms of the report?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
And the second recommendation is authorises the clerk to publish the document on the board's website and provide the Scottish Government with a copy.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, we agree to the publication. Yeah.
Yeah. Once those typos have been corrected.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, convener. Thank you, board members.
So then we move on to item 14, which is the approval of board dates. Morag, are you taking us through that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Chair, this report details the proposed dates of the Aberdeenshire Licensing Board for the year 1st May 2025 until 30th of April 2026. The board meeting dates are set to align with Aberdeenshire Council's programmed calendar of committee meetings. So as such, these dates have all been checked with committee services to try and avoid as many conflicts as we can. The convener and the vice convener have both confirmed that the dates proposed within the report are acceptable. And today, as noted in the report, I'm seeking for the board to agree the dates within the report, to note that any physical meetings will take place at Woodhull House, but that board meetings will continue to be held virtually at the current time, that all meetings will commence at 10:15 a.m, and that once approved, the dates will be published on Aberdeenshire Council's committee management system and the website.
Okay, thank you. Just a slight amendment that the pre-meetings are at 9:15. Yeah.
Yeah, that's been noted,
Okay.
Chair. Thank you. And we'll make sure that's amended prior to the dates being published.
Okay. So does everybody agree to adopt these dates? Yeah. And with the
Agreed, yeah.
fact that the meetings will remain virtual in the meantime, I think it's important, if we're going to do that, that we agree to it. I think that's down to just logistics, really, isn't it? That they remain virtual.
I think it works really well, especially with having so many people phone in. It means you don't have somebody in the room with us that might not be clear because the volume on the, on the screens in the meeting rooms sometimes isn't that great. So if it was hybrid, there might be things missed.
Okay, so agree the dates. We've done that. Note that any physical meetings would take place in Woodhull House and their virtual current time. All meetings commence at 10:15, and once approved, the board meetings will be published on the committee management system on the website. Okay, so do we agree that on the recommendations? Yep.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agreed.
So neatly on then, the date of the next meeting is the 30th of October for members to note. So I can now confirm that the meeting has concluded and the recording will be stopped. Thank you for your interest in this business today and your participation in the meeting. Just wait for the recording to be stopped and the live stream.